Well, I think the big issue is going to be budget. Um, One of the concerns I think a lot of folks have is that we've seen a retraction of the economy, and how do we get those businesses going again? We've been fortunate in that we've been propped up by a lot of online sales. Arizona passed the ability to collect those online sales a few years ago, which has been a big savior for us. Um, but on the other flip side of that, you have a lot of Arizona businesses that are not getting those businesses, especially small business, and they're hit pretty hard. So we're going to have to look at how that affects us long term. Our tourism industry is another one that was greatly impacted. So the overall budget is going to be a fairly significant issue. Kickstarting the economy is another one. Things like how do we get tourism going and going again? The things that we're looking at, like tourism marketing authorities, giving them the resources to start promoting and branding Arizona again. Once hopefully things start to turn to normal and people get vaccinated, they'll start coming back to Arizona, and we can get that major sector of the economy going. The other issue for business, I think, is liability reform, making sure that businesses can function without without having the worry if they're doing a good job of making sure people are safe. Correct. If they're doing their due diligence, they shouldn't be exposed to frivolous lawsuits. So I think those are the big issues we're going to look at: budget, how do we re-kick start the economy, and making sure businesses are protected from frivolous lawsuits. Well, it tells me that if you have an R by your name, you're not going to win automatically. But it also tells me that this blue wave that folks predicted that was going to just win everything doesn't happen unless you have good resources behind you, good candidates that are running. Um, I think Arizona has changed. I think that is a very fair statement. I think you're seeing a lot more in migration from states like California, where I think political philosophies might not be on either side of the aisle, not be as extreme, but more centrist. The growth of the Latino population is still having a big difference in our state. So I think political parties are going to have to do a better job of outreach in the future and making sure that their messages get heard. And like I said, it's if you have an R by your name and you're a statewide candidate, you're not guaranteed a victory. And I think that's been the case for a while now, but I think even more so. Well, um, I think it's important to see what's going to happen at the start of the session. We have a very thin margins. The House of Representatives is a 31 Republicans, 29 Democrats. The Arizona State Senate has 16 Republicans, 14 Democrats. So if one member were to defect and not go with the party lines, it's going to be a very interesting process. We know that there's a lot of infighting going on right now within the Republican Party. The same thing could be said of the Democrats, but it really hasn't manifested itself because they're not in charge. But because Republicans are in charge, and because there's a lot of disagreement on how the the elections were handled, for instance, there's a lot of blowback that's happening with Speaker Bowers, and that's been well publicized. There's been a lot of state senators that are calling for more action, both from their leadership as well as the governor. So the question is going to be how far are they going to block anything of substance from happening, whether they're bills, whether they're the budget. So I'll be interested to see how the legislative leadership, the speaker and the president, Senate president, talk about how they're going to deal with that and how they're going to get the the basic legislative session going again. But there are going to be some significant issues they're going to have to deal with internally. Also, how we're dealing with COVID too. There's a segment that feels that we shouldn't be doing vaccinations, that we shouldn't be wearing masks, that we shouldn't have any restrictions. So all of those things are going to come to a head when the session kicks off. So it'll be interesting to see what they say about that. when people ask about getting involved, I remember, and I'm paraphrasing what Plato said, that people that feel they're too smart to get involved in politics are often doomed to be governed by those that aren't. And so if folks are reticent to get involved, especially business leaders, then they have to understand that their livelihoods, the livelihoods of their employees, their ability to service their customers, all get in jeopardy. Because if they're not engaged, if they're not looking at what's happening, then things will get imposed on you. I think that the easiest way to get involved is by being a member of the Greater Phoenix Chamber. That's step one, and that's an easy step. But then not just being a member, but also getting engaged. The one of the things that I'm struck by is how good the quality of our committees. We have a number of committees, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in the construction industry, whether you're in the finance industry. We have a place for to utilize your talents and to utilize our members' talents. And by getting involved in those types of committees, making sure that the policies that are being pursued is in line with that mindset of good government and good business, we can marry those two things. They're not mutually exclusive. I think the Greater Phoenix Chamber does a tremendous job, led now by our chairman, John Wolf, who's the head of Cox Communications, and of course, our president and CEO, Todd Sanders, that are really aggressively wanting that input from business leaders and wanting folks to get engaged. So I think the more we can utilize the talents of our membership, I think the better off Arizona government will be at all levels.